Every family has a story. Some are told at the dinner table. Others are buried for decades, sealed away, waiting to be uncovered. On this episode of Family Twist, we meet two people who set out on a cross-country journey, not just for answers, but for connection. Kayli and Dan, Team Red on Season 15 of Relative Race, entered a 10-day journey against time, memory, and mystery. Kayli, adopted at birth, knew there were missing pieces to her past. Her Uncle Dan stepped up to help her find them. Together, they navigated unfamiliar roads, met strangers who turned out to be family, and opened doors, literally and emotionally, that had been closed for generations. This is more than a reality show recap. This is what it looks like when the truth finally catches up with you. And spoiler alert, family secrets? Yeah, they're the ultimate plot twist. Welcome to the Family Twist podcast.
Hi, thank you.
So we're excited. First off, I want to give a shout out to Kendall's brother, Chris, because he's the one who introduced me to Relative Race. He was big into genealogy before he and Kendall found each other. He's very excited. I reached out to him. I said, I know you're a big fan of the show. Anything you want me to ask for introducing us to Relative Race? So when you tell people about the show, how do you describe it?
Well, the experience was just awesome, Meeting family was ultimately the best thing that ever happened. But doing the challenges was fun. It was just a great experience all the way around.
Yeah, it was really life-changing, I would say, for us. We've been on this journey for quite a while. So we actually were part of season 13 and then part of season 15 as well. So it's like been 3 years of our life, just a constant talking with producers and talking with stuff. So it's life-changing and it's become so ingrained in us that it's pretty hard to let it go at this point and say goodbye to that journey.
Sure. Yeah. How did you end up on the show?
So in 2023, in June of 2023, the show actually reached out to an uncle of mine, my great uncle, and let him know that he had a daughter he had no idea about and that they wanted our family to participate. So I am a second cousin of my cousin Ashley. So I was the last family member to be contacted for the show. But that's the first time I had ever heard about it. After talking with a producer, she gave me the link and I watched my whole entire season. I think it was season 10 or 11 that I watched the entire season. And I was hooked. And then before I met my cousin Ashley, I watched every season. I kind of pretty much knew that this was, something that I kind of wanted to do. And so I went into it with a really open mind and I had a great time. And we just kind of went on the journey again.
So cool. Awesome. So let's dig in a little bit into your family stories. Whichever one of you wants to start, just kind of like give us a little background about how you ended up where you are today.
My biological mother was 19 years old. I'd gotten pregnant when she was in school. And Dad pretty much was just like, what do you want me to do about it? She decided the best thing to do was to give me up for adoption. My adopted parents, I was 3 weeks old when I was adopted by him. And then I had a great family environment, loving Christian home. It was great. I never lacked for anything. Everything I ever wanted, I just asked Mom and she usually gave in. But then, I'd always been curious. And then, like Kayli said, my wife went on the show on season 13 with Kayli and they met Ashley. And then, it was just like an opportunity fell into place. Kayli came back and she was just like, I tried out for the show and I was like, well, maybe I want to try out too. And then we decided to try out together and all of a sudden, like a couple months before the show started recording, we got a phone call and I found out we was on the show.
Exciting. So it's got to be surreal, because you're doing these challenges and stuff, but, ultimately the show is about reconnecting with family. So what's going, are you even able to think about that when you're doing the challenges? Or is it okay, let's get through this challenge and then we'll think about
For some teams, I could see it being really hard. Dan and I were really able to compartmentalize our day, right? So we're with our family in the morning, we're saying goodbye. That's actually really emotional. It's hard because you don't have a lot of time with them. So you've met them the night before, you're leaving them by 8, 9 in the morning, and it just seems like it's a really quick turnaround. And so you're kind of emotional, but now you're forced to read your paper map and figure out where you're going. And you really don't have time to get stressed about that. Otherwise, you're going to get lost. He was fantastic at navigating. And so you're able to do that. And then once you get to the challenge for Dan and I, we just focused on the challenge. Let's just get this 20, 30 minutes out the way, do what we need to do. And it was after that moment that I think our nerves started to hit. Because once you finish the challenge, now you know we're going to meet somebody new. Yeah. And that's when you have to like really get your emotions in check and get yourself prepared, because the second you walk to that door, you don't know how you're going to react or who you're going to meet.
Right.
So it's a lot, the stress in that aspect.
Yeah.
And like for me, like I can talk to you about meeting my dad. So I grew up not having a parent in my life. So I had my mother and I was close with her in some aspects, but I did not have my biological father in my life. My mother had told me that it was one man that she had had a long-term relationship with. She truly believed that that was my father. And so I had names. I had grandparents. I had aunts and uncles that I had never met, but I had known who they were. When I was 32, my grandfather asked me to take a DNA test. He wanted me to take a DNA test to just kind of find out what percentages my heritage were. When I did, I came up with names that were not the names I had been given. Who are these people, right? And it just threw me for a loop. I went back to my mom and she had let me know that there had been a chance that it could have been between a couple of different men. She had thought for sure that it was this one guy because of how I looked and all these things. But it turns out it wasn't. And now I have all these names and I have this heritage that I didn't know. And so we go on this journey ultimately because there was one named Destiny that I had saw, and I knew deep down she was my sister. Like I just knew it. My whole life I've wanted a sister. She has to be my sister based off of how genetics work. And so that was what I was looking for personally, is to go on this and see if I could find her. And so when we applied, I applied first. I actually applied with Ashley. And I came back and he's like, I want to go. And so we like, okay, we reapplied together and we got accepted together. And it was just it's a crazy ride because I met my sister. I met who I was looking for, but I never expected to meet my dad. I think that there was an idea that he might be there, that we would meet him. But that moment I walked up to the door and I saw him, it's like all these years of emotions came out in 1 second. It was just a crazy experience. I still can't believe that we met our parents. Like he met his mom. I met my dad. It wasn't part of what we expected on the journey. And it was beautiful and awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Did your sister that you met, she'd always known your dad was with him?
Yeah. She was raised with him. Yeah. She was raised with him. And I mean, he had no idea I existed because again, my mom had never told him or, the situation. So it was just as much a shock to their family as it was to me when I found out. I did try to reach out to her through Ancestry, 5-6 years ago, and she never responded back through it. Now, I don't know that 5 years ago, I might have been in the place to receive the information correctly and to, kind of let bygones be bygones, whatever happened in the past be gone. And so I just feel like it was meant for us to happen now. It was just a joy.
I would imagine it's hard not to even just have the inkling that, or the hope, like, well, what if this is, I get to meet my mom? What if I get to meet my dad? And is that hard to put that away when you're, focusing on the challenges and things like that?
For myself, I had a really easy time putting that aside. Our family is just really competitive and stuff. So
we just like to compete.
When we're competing. We put everything out and we try to do our best. So
with him, we did not expect to meet a parent. Based off of his age, we kind of went into this expecting that we were going to get the hard answers that his parents probably weren't with us. And so on day 3, when we meet his mom, it's a real shock to us. Like it was not something that we had prepped for. With my dad, I had kind of thought, based off of the information that I had, he was still alive. So there was hope the entire time. But as the days kept progressing, it was like, is it going to be today? No. Okay. Is it going to be today? No. And it just went on and on and on. And so towards the end of the race, we're like, is it going to happen? Is it going to be the last day? Like, when are we going to meet my dad? And when we got into Galveston, I don't know what it was about the air or the situation, but we kind of knew that was my dad that day. And it was a really hard day to get through.
I bet.
To get there.
Just making eye contact with him for the first time. Can you take us through those moments?
It's my face. I didn't even need to ask who he was. I walked around the car, I saw him, and it was my face. And I lost it. And it was like, for the first time in my life, all those dreams and wishes and prayers that you wish, like, I wish I could meet my dad. I wish I knew anything about him. And he's there in the flesh. It's a crazy experience. It's surreal. And it almost didn't feel like real life. It happened so fast. I mean, you're moving, you're filming, you got to go into interviews, you're doing stuff. So it's a really weird experience where you can't just sit down and kind of have those conversations you want with them. But I did end up going back after the show ended. I did go to San Antonio and spend, some time with him, and brought my kids with him and got to spend that alone time. And I can tell you that I'm still freaked out by how many qualities and things that we have in common. Like, we really are the same person, and I wasn't raised by him. It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about your mom, but you guys look alike.
It was just like, whoa, those are my eyes.
Wow. Wow.
But I would agree that some of the mannerisms, our sense of humor, are really similar.
Yeah.
I mean, even down to like our same favorite colors and things like that you're like, how is that even possible that we like all these same things and we've never met?
Yeah.
It's just genetics are weird.
It's true, because when I am around my brother Chris, that we've already mentioned, it's just so interesting to think that we only met, I was 47, he was 45. And, when I watch him and I notice, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I, of course, had zero relatives that I was biologically related to that I grew up with. So, you never really quite get that. Emulate people, right? I emulated my adoptive parents, and I'm sure I had some of their mannerisms because I was around them all the time. But it's so interesting to meet someone that you feel so connected really quickly.
Every family member we met, it was instant connection. We didn't have any scenario where we felt extremely awkward or like, oh, this is weird. It was like we were family and we've never been apart.
Yeah.
And his family accepted me so beautifully and vice versa. It was a really beautiful experience for us. And that doesn't happen for everybody on the show. So we get really lucky.
Yeah. It's definitely something that's burned into my mind forever. Just like as an observer, that first moment of meeting Kendall's brother and a niece and nephews and sister-in-law at the airport. And then the next day, then seeing him lock eyes with his father and uncle and sister for the first time. It's just like, I mean, I can go right there now, like my braids. I could see those moments like played again and again in my head. So it's just, yeah, when it works out like that, it's a beautiful thing.
We're very blessed.
Yeah. So what is the relationship like now for you with your sister and your dad?
Well, I talk to my dad probably, a couple times a week. I flew out there. My sister and I, we talk daily. I mean, we're just all day long. I've been out to Georgia. She has a daughter, so my niece, who is 3 days younger than my youngest son. So we would have been pregnant together. And so we have these two children that just love each other and adore each other. I think that that's my favorite part of the whole journey. I found my sister. I have two brothers on my mom's side, but I've never had a sister. And to have that girly energy and just to have a companion that gets it from a mother aspect, it's been pretty awesome.
Well, Kayli, in your notes to us, you kind of hinted at some rough times in your teenage years. Has this experience helped you close the door on that or have some closure on your past?
I think it has. I mean, growing up, I left at 16 from my situation. I had multiple stepfathers growing up. I had one who passed away. And so you build all of these relationships with these men, and then they kind of all leave you at some way, shape, or form. And you become cold to the situation. And I was for a long time. My entire 20s, I had no idea that I wanted to find my dad. Like, it just wasn't for me. But at that time, I thought it was the man who abandoned me and left me and really wasn't there. So when I found out that it was not who I thought it was, that actually sent me in for a bigger loop. I had, quite a bit of depression I had to work through. Just confused, really confusing situation. And I talked to several people about it, including, my Uncle Dan, my husband, and I asked him, if you had a child out there that you didn't know about, would you want to meet them? And every single person I talked to said, yes, he deserves that right. I tried to reach out through Ancestry. I got no information. And then when Relative Race came around, I felt like this was like a sign. Like, this is, what else are we going to get? And Ashley told me, when are you going to have a team of professional genealogists do this for you? That was just kind of my sign. Okay, let's try it. Let's see whatever happens, good or bad. Let's see what happens. And I'm glad I did, because I feel like now that I have the answers, now that I know, whether it turns out good or bad for me in the end, which luckily it's turning out good, but I got what I needed. I got to know who he is. I got to meet him. I got to talk to him. I got to hug him. I got to know why the situation happened. And that's healing. I mean, I cried the other day when I was like, I can fill out my medical history form with both parents. It's something as simple as that I don't think that people realize who don't have their biological information, that's important. So,
I mean, you want to be able to know that what happened in the past, what should we be looking for?
Well, it's so weird that my oldest uncle on that side is the spitting image of my son, my 18-year-old son. And it's creepy. It's like, how can those two be so genetically connected? And it's just, it's a cool thing to see.
Yeah.
So.
I joke with I have two male cousins on my dad's side, and it's my dad's brother's sons. I joke with them all and say that I look more like Uncle Sean than his own sons look like.
True.
It's crazy.
Well, and I think it's crazy that I look most like my dad compared to his other children. And it's just really like, how is that,
Yep.
I always thought I looked like my mom. So to see my dad's face is crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Dan, can you talk a little bit about just the years that went by not knowing your biological mother, and then how do you prepare yourself to finally have her in your life?
The years that went by, I was loved by my adopted parents so much that I was never really curious as much as Kayli was. As I get older, my main concern was knowing your medical history, knowing what you might have coming up. Stuff like that started creeping up in my head. And then after meeting the family, it was just such a special and emotional thing. I don't know if I know how to explain it, but it took me for a loop bigger than I thought it would. I didn't expect some of the emotions that I've been going through here lately. I didn't expect to have the love that they are showing me now and not even knowing me. It was just incredible. I try to talk to my mom at least once a week, and she's always just so kind and loving and caring. It's just really great. And my sisters have been awesome too. And my aunt, we had a watch party for the last episode of Relative Race, and she was able to make it. And it was just great spending time with Lori.
That's so cool.
I think one of my favorite moments watching Dan was the very first time he met a family member. So his sister Gina, it's on day 2. And we went into it and he's excited. He's going to meet a family member. But when she said, "I'm your sister," he was like taken back for a second. And then it hit him. And he was like, "Wait, this is my sister." And you could see like the wheels turning in his head and the emotions starting to come out. It was a beautiful thing to watch because he was like, "Wow, this is real. This is my sister." And then she turned that picture over of his mom and kind of, it was a 10-year-old picture, but that was the first time we looked at each other and said, "Oh, wait,
This is real.
This is real. She could be real. She could be here." And then we met her the next day and we were just taken back. I think watching him heal and wounds that I don't think he even knew he had. And I wouldn't even say wounds, but just like these holes that he didn't even know he had was a beautiful experience to be a part of. And I loved every moment that he was with his family members, that he was like, "Wow, this is my blood." And him and his Aunt Lori, they're so identical. They're such a hoot. She came to our watch party. My dad and my stepmom came, and my aunt from the show came to the watch party.
When I think about my adopted parents too, like Dan, I had a really great experience with them. And, I petitioned the court when I turned 18. I never found anything. I put that away a long time ago. Had registered with every registry I could find. It was a dead end everywhere. And by the time I graduated college, I was like, okay, I had a great family. I'm good. But to your point, Kayli, I mean, it was a hole, it was just, I didn't know how much I needed to find these people until I did.
Before Kendall did the DNA test, I just always said, like, there's a hole in your heart missing. There's something is missing. There's a piece of the puzzle that we don't have access to. And Kendall had such a wonderful experience with his adopted family. When we went through this crazy journey, like that wound, it comes to the surface. It's still here. We talk about it being a roller coaster ride, but I don't think you have any regrets.
None. I never expected to be rejected by my birth mother when we found each other, but she's never spoken to me. But I wouldn't trade the experience of finding everybody else, just because she and I can't connect. I do wish I could, of course, but it is what it is. Now because it'll be 8 years in just a few months. And at this point, I have to let that go a bit and say, you know what, that's on her. And the ball is completely in her court and she knows it at some point.
And that second rejection is so hard. I mean, I do know a lot of contestants talk about that and how they expected to feel love from their, biological parents, and they didn't get that.
Yeah.
And so that second rejection is pretty hard. And I mean, I don't know exactly how that feels, but I do have a bad situation with my mother, and this only aggravated it even more and wasn't necessarily the best situation. So I can completely understand how hard it would be for people to go through this journey and then just not be welcome.
Yeah.
And I think that Relative Race does a really good job of trying to find the family members that do want to be there for the most part. I think that that's one of the things that was easier for us, is that we knew that these family members said yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's one major reason that it was somewhat okay, is that they wanted to be here. They chose to take the time off. They chose to fly out and be wherever they needed to be at that moment.
Yeah.
So that was helpful, but I can't imagine just walking up to the airport and not knowing how you'd be perceived.
Yeah. Well, the good news about that is that when my brother and I found each other in August of 2017, when we met, so I mean, I felt, he was the one that was looking for me. And and I love the fact that Corey got me the DNA kit for my birthday in 2017, and his wife got him his DNA kit for his birthday in 2017. So it just, it happened pretty quickly, except that his birthday's in February and mine's in July. And when we first started talking, he's like, what took you so long?
Yeah.
It was like, well, it was a birthday gift. But you're right. You still don't know, right? You can talk on the phone and FaceTime and all of that, but really physically being with somebody can be very different.
I'll say I was a little bit nervous when I met some of Kendall's family on his birth mother's side for the first time, because Kendall wasn't there. We'd already made the decision to move from California to New England to be close to his father's side of the family. I was literally road tripping with my best friend's mom from Missouri. Kendall's aunt and her husband own a steakhouse where his cousins work, and his sister was going to be there. It was just like, oh boy, I'm walking in.
Yep.
But it was instant. I didn't even touch my steak because I was just talking to his sister and his aunt and his cousins the whole time. And it was just, it was surreal.
I think that that's the craziest thing for us, is that you just don't expect the love. That's not what happened for us. And I do know that other teams had situations like that. But for us, I don't think we had any hard questions to ask.
Right.
I didn't really have any hard questions to ask my father. I knew he didn't know. And I knew that, this was just by chance that we both were in this situation. And so for us, that took the edge off. There wasn't really any animosity towards these people going in. And I know some teams have that before they get there. They've had some pretty rough situations.
Right, right. Now, have you heard from fans of the show that have reached out to you that are on their own journeys?
Yes. I get messages like every other day from somebody who's on their own journeys. And I encourage them all. If you can find the answers, I think that knowing is better than not knowing. Yeah. And it may not always give you the peace that you want, but I think that there is peace in at least having the answers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I always try to encourage them and talk to them and point them in the right direction. I've given the link out a couple of times, being like, go on Relative Race, try it out. I mean, it's so worth it.
Cool.
And does the show still stay in touch with you even though your seasons have wrapped and everything? Are you still in touch with anybody from the show or other contestants?
Yeah, we talk to the other contestants. We have a group chat. We talk all the time. We're actually heading out to Utah for a wedding here soon, for Leland's wedding. And we stay in contact with our producer all the time. She's a sister to us. We love Lauren. And the show will message us or ask for pictures and things like that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I hope we can go back someday. They bring contestants back sometimes on day 10. And I'm like, please bring us back. We had so much fun.
Yeah.
Well, I just love that the longevity of the show, and it's still going. It's just great. People are making these discoveries all the time. And it's what a great original concept for a program.
They've already filmed season 16 and moving on to season 17. So, it's a production. They go through it very quickly. And it's amazing how logistically they get us all there. Logistically, they get all the families to where they need to be. They find the families. Tristan, the genealogist, is amazing. She's just wonderful.
Wow.
And what changed the show, when they brought her on, they started finding, close family. It's pretty awesome to see.
Well, just to have two family members find their parents at the same time is just like, just gives you chills.
Well, everybody on our season actually found a parent. David doesn't get to meet his mom on the season, but he does meet her after day 10. Every contestant this season found a parent. And it's crazy to me to think that they were able to do that.
Yeah.
They found us all our answers.
Wow.
I love it.
Yeah. So something we've been doing recently is like sort of a final question that we ask our guests is that when you're kind of going through all the feels, the family feels and stuff, is there a musical artist or a song that you kind of go to, like your go-to, like this is what I need to hear right now?
Or a genre.
Ooh, that's a good question.
We need to start.
Well, we're such music people. That's the reason.
Yeah.
For me, it's a newer artist, NF. There's a couple of songs that he has in his catalog. One's called Mansions and one's called Changes. And those two songs I literally listened to probably on repeat before I even did the show. And it's just talking about, he grew up in an abusive situation. His songs are talking about his past and his problems and his issues. And it was a reminder to me that this is why I'm going on this journey. I'm going on this journey to change and find these answers and get what I need and heal. And so those two songs, I think, remind me of our journey. They're a little depressing, but they're about my journey.
Hey,
That's okay.
The first song that just comes to my head is I Got a Feeling by
Justin Timberlake.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Cool.
good.
That song just always makes me happy and wants me to start my day off. Talking to family, sometimes you feel like this is a good start to a good day.
Yeah, cool.
Feeling.
Now I want to hear that song as soon as we
I know.
hang up with you.
That's what we do. We go like, we gotta go listen to those.
Like this is when we're recording the podcast, I think is the only time of day that there's not music playing in the house. We even have it play overnight for the cats. So
That's beautiful. I love it.
We're
What's
crazy
your
about
guys' favorite songs?
Kendall, what is the song that you go to or an artist that you go to?
Well, mine's just, it has to be upbeat and positive. I could be one of the world's biggest Jody Watley fans, which some people don't even know who she is. She's from Shalimar from the 70s and 80s, and her, and I could just put on anything by her and be happy.
Yeah.
All right.
For me, and this goes back to like thinking about my dad or something like that. He was, and Kendall's birth father the same way, both huge Creedence fans, and love John Fogerty. Saw him last summer and still amazing. He's turning 80 this year. It's hard life. But if I hear looking out my back door, the waterworks start up, because that's definitely like the one that makes me think of him. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for
thanks.
having us.
Oh,
on
thank
here.
you. This is great. Thank you for sharing your journeys, and congratulations on your happy endings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not every journey ends with a grand reunion, but sometimes it begins with one. Kayli and Dan didn't just find family, they found belonging. And in the faces of people they'd never met, they saw themselves, reflected, remembered, welcomed. What makes Relative Race so powerful isn't the race, it's what's waiting at the finish line. Healing, hope, and sometimes the kind of love you never thought you'd get to feel. This is Family Twist, and this story, like so many we've shared, is proof that the truth doesn't just set you free, it brings you home. The Family Twist podcast is presented by Savoir Faire Marketing Communications and produced by How the Cow Ate the Cabbage, LLC.